Are you a service-based business owner looking to increase profits to fund your lifestyle? Well, this podcast is for you. We bring you inspirational guests sharing actionable tips to solve many of the struggles you face each and every day. And now, over to your host, Paul Higgins.
Hello to the Build, Live, Give podcast. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. And if you enjoy it, please subscribe. If you're a regular, thanks for your support. Love to get your feedback at paul@buildlivegive.com. It means the world to me when you do. Welcome to Take Notes, and also the interview is fully transcribed. But take notes if you like, but you can get the full transcription at the end. So our guest today is someone who started helping global brands with international tax at PwC. It wasn't for him, and he wanted to help more people. So he went into the finance industry, still in a large company. That was acquired, and the CEO had the foresight to have him work for 2 years while setting up his own business. This went well, but the birth of his son challenged his 70-hour-a-week work ethic. Through using outsourcing, he reduced this to 30 minutes a month. He now helps small business owners to get their freedom back through virtual assistants. So why listen? He gives an answer to, should you build systems first and then hire, or the other way around? It was a great explanation. How to onboard and get the most out of a VA, remembering they're a real person. And the last is the business model he uses to have more referrals than he can handle. They've kindly given a free course at the end of the show. So over now to Brian Jones from VA Platinum. Welcome, Brian Jones from VA Platinum to the Build, Live, Give podcast. Great to have you on, Brian.
Oh, good to be here, and thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, no, look, I know, we caught up some time ago, and I really enjoyed those conversations. And like all things, often in life, you sort of drift apart. So it's brilliant to have you back and just see how well you've done and share those fantastic learnings today on the show. But before we get into that, why don't we start with something that your family or friends know about you that we may not?
Okay. The biggest thing that my new friends, because I've moved to a very cute country town called Brighton, Victoria, so a lot of new friends don't have a clue that Caroline, my wife, and I are foster parents because we haven't been fostering while we've been here. So no one knows that we have been foster parents for most of our time together.
Excellent. And you gave away a little secret at the start. I don't know if it's a public thing, but when they listen to this, you may even have a foster child by then.
We will. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, look, I think everyone that fosters a child is just doing a wonderful thing. And for you and Carolyn to do it is fantastic. So that's great. And I know you sort of had, like me, a great corporate background, PwC, OAMP, so some really big brands, and then, jumped out probably, well, what was it, around 2009?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Right. Yeah, it was 2 years before I took the leap. So take us through that little bit of a journey, what you did in those and why, most importantly, you decided to take the plunge, as I say.
Yeah, sure. So I had a great experience at PwC to start with in my career, and worked out I didn't want to be in international tax saving big companies, and I really wanted to help people instead. So I moved into financial planning, and as you said, I worked for OAMPs for quite a number of years. And same as most people, you climb the corporate ladder. So I became the national manager, the director, responsible manager on our license, and Wesfarmers came along and purchased OAMPs. And that gave me the opportunity to work directly for Rob Scott, who's now the CEO of Wesfarmers. And just when Wesfarmers purchased us, I said, look, Rob, thanks for the opportunity, but I really want to go out and give it a go myself in my own business. And he was amazing in that he said, look, Brian, why don't you work with me for 2 years, help me make some transformation in the business that I want to make. And at the end of 2 years, absolutely go off and be in your business, but I'll make it even sweeter than that. You may start your business right now while working for us, so long as you're not a director of the company that you start. So it was fortunate I had a business partner and I doing this new business. And so he was the director, I wasn't. And it enabled me to transition over a 2-year period into my own new business because I really felt like I wanted to grow my own experience, help other people in a different way than a corporate could help.
What a great guy. I'm just trying to think, who was before Rob?
Richard Goyder.
Yeah, Richard. A good friend of mine worked for Richard, and Richard just seemed like a fantastic person as well. So sounds like Rob, but I must admit, I went to the company I worked at and had a similar conversation, but I was proactive and unfortunately they weren't. So I said, let me start my business. I'll work 4 days a week and they were back in the mind of, no, if you're not working 80 hours, or actually if you're not working 80, 90 hours, working 6 days a week, you can't be a director. So are you telling me, Paul, that you're not committed to this company? Yeah, so unfortunately they took a different route, but I'm glad Rob had so much foresight to back a really good person like. And I've said it to you lots of times, Brian, but I think if you really do good in the world, people will do the same back to you. And I think you're a classic example where you just do so much for others that I suppose it's natural for them to return the favor like Rob did. Yeah. So you did that, you ran both businesses. What was it like, or what was some of the major hurdles when you first left Wesfarmers? And for those that are listening around the world, Wesfarmers, one of Australia's largest companies, currently it controls, I don't know, what would it be, 20% of retail in Australia?
Would be, Paul.
Look, there's 2 major supermarket brands in Australia and it runs one. So just to give a bit of context, it's a very big company. Once again, shows the credibility of Brian to be at that level. But what were some of the hurdles when you first started the financial planning and you left Wesfarmers?
Yeah, good point. Well, I'll even go back one step. Even before I left Wesfarmers and I started this financial planning business while still working for Rob with his blessing, the hardest thing was getting new clients. So we decided to do something different. We decided to acquire clients. So we'd actually go out to people that were retiring and we'd buy their businesses. And we did a succession of those over the first 2 years while still working for Rob Scott. And I think we did 5 businesses. So the hardest thing for me that time was to find those businesses, buy them, merge them in, and put systems and processes in place that staff could then follow. That was the hardest journey. I think I'd finish work with Rob 5:30. I'd go home, have dinner with my partner, and I'd be back in my own office at 6:30 and work till midnight most nights. So time, processes, systems, and finding clients.
And on reflection, acquiring revenue the way that you did, was that the right thing to do? Would you do it again if you're in that position?
If I had my time again, I wouldn't change anything. My experience when I was running my own business, I moved the dial a little bit and tried to go out and grow organically instead of through acquisition. And we found it extremely hard in the particular space of financial planning and life insurance. Life insurance is almost impossible to grow organically, in my opinion. I've got some close friends that do it successfully, but they're in the top 0.1%. Financial planning, you can grow organically with the right, and Paul, this is your sweet spot, with the right LinkedIn message, with the right posting on LinkedIn, with the right videos. You can certainly grow organically, but not easily.
And, Rob obviously was a great supporter. Who else sort of have been your key mentors along this journey?
Yeah, there's a guy called Paul Higgins who is now passed away. But when I first started, Paul put me into his office and he sat me down as though I knew nothing. Now, here I am, a bloke who's been working for Rob Scott. I've been a national director. I've been runner of the license for an ASX-listed company. And he brought me in and literally taught me how to run a small business. He showed me how to scan a file into a computer and how to file that information away in a systematic approach. He taught me how to service clients. And Paul Higgins did this for no gain whatsoever for himself. He just said, one day, Brian, you'll be able to help so many other people if I teach you this. And we caught up on a once every 2-month basis. And he was just a legend in how he just helped everyone.
Right. And do you think, if you've always been a giving person, as I mentioned before, do you think that Paul's action stimulated more of that in you?
Good question. I was a giving person for most of my life up until I turned 21 and I went into the corporate world of PwC and into transfer pricing. And I think for that 3-year gap, I really don't feel like I was giving anything to anyone. And that was the catalyst for me to move out of PwC into OAMPS so I could become a financial planner and help other people. And then when I met Paul, some 8 years later, he was the major driver for me in helping others. And I think that then helped me meet my wife, who was a foster care at the time, and she helped people as well. And just, you do the hockey stick, really accelerated.
Brilliant. Great. Well, I know you said you worked incredibly hard and, from what I understand, you were probably working, 70 plus hours, etc. So how did you turn that around? So working that many hours, how did you get it down to a reasonable amount of hours? What was your secret?
Firstly, you have to have enough impact to change. And my son was born and working 70 hours a week and him being born was the impact that made me go out and read books. So I read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week. I read Michael Gerber's E-Myth. And I decided to hire virtual staff in my business in the Philippines to supplement my Australian staff. And Tim Ferriss was all about systems and processes. Michael Gerber was exactly the same. It was build systems and processes. So as a staff member and I, we built over 200 systems and processes in our business. We documented them, trained the virtual staff, and literally within 1 year, I was able to go from 70 hours a week to 30 minutes a month.
That's fantastic. And look, I've got to say, they're the two books that I read as well as I went to leave Coca-Cola. So thank both of those. Quick story on Michael. I actually reached out to, I think his wife, who I should remember her name, but I don't off the top of my head. It was a little bit before my kidney transplant, so it was a bit foggy mind back then. But she actually commented on one of my posts. So I did the usual and started building a relationship with her, and then looked at her surname and I sort of put two and two together and like, oh my God, this is Michael Gerber's wife. But to her credit, she was a beautiful soul. She was a lovely lady and never told me at any point was she going to let me on that she was Michael Gerber's wife. So there you go. But so that's brilliant. So you build up this team, you build up the IP, you build up the systems, which is fantastic. So at what point did you decide to start providing a service like this to others?
Yeah, so I basically retired, working 30 minutes a month. That's retirement, isn't it? And I had spent 3 years investing into angel investments. So I joined Melbourne Angels and was working with them to invest into startups, and it just wasn't fulfilling. And a friend of mine who I used to share an office with, a financial planner in Black Rock, local business, he asked, can I help him? Can I help him hire virtual staff and develop systems and processes? So that was the catalyst. I went, oh, sure, I'll help you. And then I told my accountant that I was helping this mate of mine. He said, actually, I've got 2 businesses that need your help. So he then referred me these other 2 businesses. And that's how it started, just through people reaching out, and those 3 businesses started referring more businesses, and it became a snowball.
Excellent. So you were brought out of retirement.
Yeah, it was. And I think it's when you and I caught up for the first time. I probably only had 5 or 6 clients at the time.
I remember when we met, it was, you were, I think what grabbed me, and the reason I knew you were going to be successful when I spoke to you, was the value model. A lot of people talk about putting clients first, but your model was truly a brilliant model, which I think made the difference between what I think now you're around 170 people in your team. I think that growth has been driven by that model. So just talk a little bit about that original model, because I'm assuming it's still the same, but if it's not, certainly tell me about the original one that I knew.
No, it's exactly the same. You learn from a lot of people like Jeff Walker from Product Launch Formula. I followed Pat Flynn, Lewis Howes, and a lot of what they talk about is transparency. And in the outsourcing virtual staff world, there really isn't enough transparency. So when we talk to new clients, we talk about, well, look, here is all of our costs, and we open up our books and we show them, this is where your money goes. We tell them exactly what a staff member earns, the benefits they get, the fully cooked breakfast, the half-price gym membership, and they're just blown away, I think, by that honesty, that transparency. And we make sure that they've already seen, before we even meet with them, we make sure that we send them an email and they can see what the office looks like, the data security. We have 3 videos of the staff so they can hear what staff sound and how they act. So you break down all of the barriers up front, you're open, you're transparent. It's almost like they have to become a client then. And they know that we're in it for the right reason, to help them, because we're being so transparent. And off the back of that, we've never had to do any outreach. It's always been by client referral.
Yeah, look, I think it's so true. And if I look at, because, I used to run an outsource company. Yeah. That's how we sort of met and shared. And I worked with a large outsourcing company that was run by a friend of mine. They had about 500 seats. And look, I remember the first time I flew to Manila, I met with about 20 companies trying to set up my little back office, because I still had that corporate thinking. I was still looking at them as a corporate business as well. And I was amazed at just the shenanigans that went on. So, and I think especially around COVID times now, etc., I think, and even like you said before on LinkedIn, I think people they're just full of the rubbish, right? Now you're back, like I'm in Melbourne, Australia. Now we're just back to effectively no material items stuck in your home. That's it. And you get to, I think, to appreciate relationships more than ever. Has there ever been a time where there's been a downside to this model of being so transparent?
Yeah, there has been. So on 2 occasions, we've started to franchise the business now, where clients have started to approach us to say, I love this. can we now become a franchisee and run our own virtual staffing business, but under you? And by being so transparent about why we do what we do, two of them, I think, took a bit of advantage and wanted to be in it for the profit game rather than for the value game. And when you start just thinking about numbers and bringing on clients and staff are just numbers, it just doesn't work. You always have to be in the middle as a marketplace, providing value to clients and providing value to staff. As soon as one of them just becomes a number, it's just not the right model. And I think by being so transparent, you show people the numbers, they can get fixated on that rather than the value.
Yeah, yes. And you obviously with the name VA Platinum, you definitely provide virtual assistants to people. Who are the ideal clients for you? Who do you love to provide them to?
Yeah, it's almost back to the PwC days, Paul. It's I don't like providing business to the big corporates because I'm not impacting their lives. I've got this bit of a mantra that I either want to save people time, create more money, or to give them freedom. Now, it's very hard to give a corporate those three things, but a small business owner that might be either have no employees or they might have up to 30 employees, that's my sweet spot because I can really help them. I can give them more time, more money, and create freedom in their life. So that's what I like doing.
And this amazing journey of 70 hours to 30 minutes, what are some of the things you've learnt through that someone listening now is thinking, I've always heard about virtual assistants, I know I should sort of get one, but for whatever reasons, there's a barrier there. What are some of the learnings you can share to help people better explore that as an option?
The virtual assistants are not the silver bullet. If you just go out and hire a VA and expect things will be better in your life, it's not the case. It all comes back to a business owner adopting a systems thinking approach by building systems, by teaching a VA via a video call how to do a task, share your screen. How do you do the task? Then get that VA to turn that video call into a system, a how-to guide, and then replicate that for every single task in your business. That is the only way I think that a business owner can be successful with any staff, let alone a virtual assistant. So we really have to train so many of our clients how to work with VAs and how to systemize their businesses.
Well, I think there's two main schools of thought. One is you get it ready, then hire. The other one is you bring people in to help you do it. So am I missing an option, or what are your thoughts around those two options?
Firm believer here, Paul. We tell clients, do not get it ready before your VA starts.
Hallelujah. I'm hoping you're going to be on my side.
Yeah. The best way of building a system is to train someone in a live video, sharing your screen for them so they can ask questions. And if you try and build systems with your own knowledge, you're going to miss about 10 steps in a process because...
that is so powerful. And so many people have said, I'll get back to you once I get it right. And I'm like, that day will never come, right? Think of other parts of your business and life where you've said, I'll get back to it. That's code for that's in the too hard basket, right? And you'll just continually avoid it. Life will go on. So I'm like you, I'm a firm believer of just get them to help you build it. And there's some wonderful platforms out there now. Dave Jennings has got something called Systemology that you can use. There's Process Street, or like we do, we can just put our systems, we just have them all in a project management software called Asana. What about for you? So for your experience of, you transfer that video into, let's call it an SOP or a checklist. What have been some of the best examples you've seen of that?
If you imagine a staff member has a set lot of tasks that they are going to do for their boss every month, the best system I've ever seen is to put all those tasks into a spreadsheet, for lack of a better tool, and get the staff member to actually evaluate themselves on how well they've performed a task against that SOP. And they have to give worked examples of why they rated themselves either a meets expectations, needs improvement, or it exceeds expectations. And everything is measured against an actual system. So how well they're performing is measured against what was documented in how they were supposed to do that task. And if a staff member is self-evaluating themselves, it's so much easier for the boss to then come in and only have a 20 or 30-minute meeting with that staff member and agree or disagree with how they've rated themselves against their performance against the system.
That's a brilliant idea. And I think that's self-awareness. I know when I used to train VAs when I ran the business, it was the I, we, you training model. And I think it was that self-awareness that I would do it, then we'd do it together, and then they would do it. And I love that, how it links back to being practical, that it's not something you can just think in your head and think that you'll do it once and then it'll never change. As we know, processes change all the time, and COVID's been a wonderful reminder of that. So that's fantastic. Any other tips around onboarding a VA?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a real firm believer in, we've got a course that we allow clients to access for free. Other people outside normally pay for it. And we go through and we teach them the basics of working with a VA, making sure that they understand that the VA is like them and that they are like each other, so that they treat them in a very humanistic way, not as a task doer, but get their mindset right. If they have to meditate on it, or if they have to write down their biggest fears. So we use a fears worksheet where we give a fears worksheet as a template to all clients. Say, write down your biggest fears before you start with a VA, and work out if they're rational or irrational fears. Because everyone's got fears, like just run off with my work. Will they just leave one day and not come back? And getting all those fears on the table before you start with your VA is a really powerful tool. The other main thing is making sure that they set up just a few things first before the VA comes. And I'm only talking about a few things. Finding a password software that will enable them to share their passwords to staff before the staff member actually starts. So the staff never see passwords. Making sure that they have some idea around what sort of staff member they want to even work with. Is it a married person? Is it someone with children, no children, someone that likes to travel? Someone's going to really fit their demographics. So they're the, three top things that I would think about talking with a client before they have a VA start.
That's right. And I'm always amused. I suppose that's the word I'd use when I see someone's CV from the Philippines. I just saw one last week. We're looking at hiring a business development person, and they still list their height and their weight.
They do.
I'm like, here in Australia, straight to jail for that one. Do not pass go.
It really is.
Yeah. But look, everyone's got their nuances. But I know your team's all in the Philippines. I've had a wonderful experience with the Philippines, and big shout out if anyone's listening from the Philippines. You've got a beautiful country and beautiful people. So what we'll do now, or actually before we go into the live section, I'd like to talk about our quiz to help you work out if you're running a profit machine or a sweat box. Just go to paulhigginsmentoring.com/quiz, QUIZ, and answer the questions in less than 5 minutes. You'll be placed in one of 4 percentage ranges with custom actions for each. One option is the opportunity to have a 45-minute strategy call where you'll walk away with a clear plan based on the results from the quiz, and another is a chance to be like Brian, which is a wonderful guest on the podcast. So just go to paulhigginsmentoring.com/quiz today. And if you want to find out more about Brian, you can go to vaplatinum.com, and we'll have all the links to Brian in the show notes. So the next is the live section, Brian. So what are some of the daily habits that help you be successful?
I have just joined the 5 a.m. club, Paul, which means I set my alarm for 5 a.m. every morning, and I get up and I do all of the things that I feel are important in my day that I would often not get to if I let my day run away. So I exercise, I meditate, I've got a personal values document that I reread through for myself. And I also start my planning of my day. Often I can jump into doing work too quickly. So I spend 20 minutes just planning my day and planning my activities, which means I actually start delegating far more because I'm more thoughtful about the activities that I should be doing versus the ones I shouldn't be doing.
Excellent. And how many times do you wake up before the alarm versus the alarm waking you?
This morning, I wake up at 4:30. So it really comes down to whether my wife, Caroline, wants to watch Netflix in bed and whether I succumb to her demands to do so.
Great. Well, speaking of Caroline, yes, now she's listening to this right now. So what would you like to say to her about the support she's given you through this journey?
Yeah, well, Caroline is almost the chairperson, not only of our family, but of the business. Every decision that is a major decision to be made in our family and in the business, she makes. So I go to her and she is the yes, no person. So yeah, thanks for listening to every crazy idea I have, Caroline, and thanks for saying no to most of them.
Perfect couple. And it's good, yes, who's got the power is I definitely know with Linda in my household. The next is the give section. And, we've talked about you being a foster parent, which is fantastic. But what are some other community or charities that you are passionate about and why?
The fostering has been our major focus for a lot of time. But, Caroline's parents just both passed away in the last couple of years from cancer. So supporting cancer charities is our second top pick these days. But also because, as you're saying, Paul, the Filipinos are such wonderful people, but it still is a developing nation. So my business partner and I have now aligned our goals with the UN goals. The UN's got these 17 goals, and we've discovered that we can now look at 9 of those goals and adopt them as being our own. So some of those are around making sure everyone has food. There's no poverty. Everyone, like every part of our business now, is non-plastic and is all renewable. So, we give a fully cooked breakfast to all our staff in the morning, but we make sure that every single container is washed and reused over and over again. So we decided that we had to go a little bit bigger than just fostering and cancer support and look at what the UN's goals were, because those are global goals. And through the help of the staff, we can now focus on these amazing initiatives in the Philippines. That means we can help people that don't have food, don't have a home, aren't educated. So we put aside a portion of our profits every month now, and they go towards each of those goals.
Oh, wonderful. Brilliant structure and really, really well summed up. And speaking of charities, I have a charity that I support all my book proceeds and a portion of my revenue goes to it. It's called the Purple House. Just go to purplehouse.org.au to find out more. So the last section is the rapid fire section. Well, I'll give you questions and you give me quick responses. So the first one is, what are your top 3 personal effectiveness tips?
Number 1, use Loom to review every possible document. Number 2, do the 20-minute planning at the start of your day to make sure you don't do things you shouldn't do. And number 3, get enough sleep every night, otherwise you won't be effective.
Excellent. And what is a piece of technology other than Loom or use Loom that's essential to running your business?
Can I give you 2, Paul? Is that possible?
Yeah, go for it.
Great. The first technology that we use is email. And I know it might sound strange, but using email effectively can be a massive win for your time. So I only spend now 20 minutes a day in email by using a virtual assistant who has a systems approach to how she handles my emails. So email, you can almost, as a business owner, get rid of it in your life. The second one we use is any video technology. So we're using Teams, Skype, and Zoom. Being able to communicate face-to-face with people in a COVID world is so important and so impactful. So that's it, my 2 tops.
Brilliant. And what is your best source of new ideas?
Podcasts, Paul. Podcasts, what we're on right now. It's rare for me to listen to a podcast and not come away with at least 5 to 10 new things to implement.
And I've got to ask, what speed do you listen to?
1.75.
1.75. That's up there. That's good. That's a lot higher than the most of the population.
Yeah.
So, that's excellent. And the last question's the big one. And I think everyone listening to this now has got just a sense of what an incredible person you are and how you are leaving an impact. But in your own words, what is the impact you want to leave on the world?
If I could not make it a VA impact, I really want to leave people the view that every single family, whether you're a single, a parent, a couple without kids, you can actually help foster children. So if I can leave anyone around the world with one major impact, you could foster children on a part-time basis, like you can have them every weekend. You could provide respite once a month. You could have emergency care, or you could have long-term care where a child or a young person is with you for 5 years. There are so many options to help disadvantaged in the world. And I think fostering is, if I could have one superpower, Paul, I would get as many people to be foster parents.
Brilliant. And I think, it all starts with one. And I think everyone listening now, just think, I always thought foster, and I'm sure you get this all the time, fostering a child meant that it was, full time, but there are other options, as you mentioned, which means that you can do it. And I think, you can do it formally, but you can also do it informally. We live in an area where it's quite affluent, but there is also some, in Australia that we call them commission homes, where the government funds their housing. And I think you've sparked me and a little idea of how I can help some of those people in this community. So it's been a brilliant to catch up again, Brian. You've shared so much value, and I'm writing things down just thinking, tick, tick. That's exactly what I would have said. There's great alignment. You have an amazing impact, as I said. So as Brian mentioned before, that course on how you can get the most out of a virtual assistant, if you go to virtual-staff.teachable.com, and there will be a link in the show notes. And when you go there, just enter the voucher code BLG, and you'll get free access to that brilliant resource. So, Brian, it's always a pleasure, but in particular today, I've thoroughly enjoyed the value you've given all of us.
Thanks, Paul. It's been fun. Really lots of fun.
Thanks, Brian. Bye.
Bye.
I thoroughly enjoyed that interview with Brian. He's just such a caring, giving sort of person, and perfectly aligned with the brand Build, Live, Give. So you can get the full transcript, as I mentioned before, and the show notes at Paul Higgins Mentoring /podcast. I'd love to know, what is your biggest takeaway from what Brian said? Please share on your socials, and we'd love if you could actually take a photo of you listening to the podcast, or even a screen grab of the podcast and mentioning what you learned. That would be fantastic. If you believe someone you know would benefit from the show, please share it with them. They will love you for it. Find out if you're running a profit machine or a sweatbox. Just go to paulhigginsmentoring.com/quiz. Please take action to build a profitable and sustainable business, and stay well.
Thanks for listening to the Build, Live, Give podcast. If you like what you heard, please share it and leave us a review. It would mean the world to us.